A married woman doesn't post provocative photos because she's single. She posts them because marriage doesn't end the need to be seen. Commitment doesn't erase exhibition. It just changes the rules around it. Most men don't want to name this because naming it creates discomfort. It forces you to admit that a ring doesn't switch off visibility, desire, or the hunger to be reflected as attractive. So you tell yourself harmless stories. She's just confident now. She's expressing herself. It doesn't mean anything. But no image is neutral. Every image has an audience, even when it pretends not to. And people don't curate themselves for nobody. When a married woman chooses a certain angle, a certain framing, a certain level of exposure, she isn't announcing availability. She's testing visibility. She's checking whether the world still reacts to her as a woman, not just acknowledges her as a wife. Men assume commitment cancels exhibition because they confuse loyalty with invisibility. In reality, loyalty changes the channel, not the impulse. The impulse to be seen doesn't disappear. It goes underground, where it becomes more subtle and more dangerous. This isn't about disrespecting the relationship. It's about something quieter and more uncomfortable. It's about the moment she realizes that being chosen once doesn't guarantee being felt forever. And instead of naming that emptiness, she measures it through eyes, through reactions, through attention that costs nothing and proves everything. She's not advertising availability. She's testing visibility. Men protect themselves with explanations because explanations are softer than truth. She's just confident now. That one sounds empowering, almost noble. It allows you to believe nothing has changed except her self-esteem. But confidence doesn't require an audience. Confidence exists with or without witnesses. The moment confidence needs to be displayed, framed, uploaded, and measured, it has already crossed into something else. It has become visibility seeking. And visibility is never accidental. When you tell yourself she's just confident, what you're really saying is that you don't want to examine why that confidence needs to be confirmed externally instead of felt internally. Then there's the most common lie men repeat without realizing it. She's doing it for herself. This one feels airtight because it sounds psychological, independent, modern. But here's the correction that matters. No one curates an image for themselves alone. You don't choose angles, lighting, timing, and exposure for a mirror. You do it for perception, for how you will be received. Doing it for herself doesn't mean doing it without an audience. It means doing it to feel something about herself through an audience. That distinction changes everything, because the behavior stops being about freedom and starts being about feedback. The last excuse is the most dangerous because it shuts down awareness completely. It doesn't mean anything. Men say this to preserve peace, not because it's true. Meaning isn't created by intent alone. It's created by impact and repetition. One photo might mean nothing. A pattern always means something, especially when the pattern emerges after marriage, after familiarity, after admiration at home has become predictable. Visibility always has an audience, even when the audience is abstract. Strangers. Possibility. The idea of being seen without context or responsibility. People don't curate images for nobody. If you want to apply this without turning it into a moral argument, stop asking whether the behavior is right or wrong. Ask what it's feeding. Observe frequency, not justification. Notice whether the images become more deliberate when life feels more routine. Pay attention to timing after arguments, after boredom, after feeling unseen. This isn't about catching her doing something bad. It's about understanding the psychological mechanics underneath the behavior. Once you stop debating morality and start reading motivation, the pattern becomes obvious. What's really being fed here isn't ego. It's identity. Marriage stabilizes identity in a way few men fully understand. Once a woman becomes a wife, her role solidifies. She is chosen, claimed, defined. On the surface, this looks like security. Psychologically, it comes with a cost. Stability reduces feedback. When identity stops being tested, it stops being actively felt. And identity, especially feminine identity, doesn't stay alive through certainty alone. It stays alive through reflection, through response, through being received in real time. Feedback is how identity breathes. In early attraction, feedback is constant. Looks are noticed. Presence is felt. Desire is mirrored back without effort. Over time, especially in marriage, that feedback becomes assumed. Not because the man stops caring, but because repetition dulls signal. When admiration becomes predictable, it loses intensity. It loses. The nervous system stops registering it as information and starts treating it as background noise. That's when the validation loop quietly activates. Not consciously, not strategically, automatically. Likes function as micro-validation. Each one is a small signal that says, "You still register." Comments go a step further. They are proof of desirability, not just visibility. They confirm that the image doesn't just exist. It provokes response. Views complete the loop. They are confirmation of relevance, of reach, of impact. None of this requires conversation, secrecy, or intention to cheat. It only requires a platform that delivers instant feedback without responsibility. That's why it's seductive. It asks nothing and gives everything identity is craving in that moment. This is where men misinterpret the behavior. They assume it's about other men. It's not. She's not chasing men. She's chasing confirmation that she still exists as a woman, not just a wife. The distinction matters. One is about replacement. The other is about reflection. In real life, this shows up after long routines, after children, after years of being needed, but not actively seen. She doesn't feel ugly. She feels undefined. And undefined identity seeks edges to prove itself. If you want to apply this insight, stop reducing the behavior to insecurity or disrespect. Look at the feedback environment. Ask yourself where her identity gets reflected most clearly. At home, is admiration spoken or assumed? Is desire expressed or implied online? Feedback is immediate, measurable, and undeniable. Understanding this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains why it feels necessary to her nervous system. When you understand the loop, you stop reacting emotionally and start seeing the mechanism that's actually being fed. The first invisible motive is identity preservation. Marriage turns women into roles long before anyone notices it happening. Wife, mother, partner, responsible, reliable. Over time, those roles begin to crowd out individuality, not because she disappears, but because she's no longer actively reflected as a singular woman. In real life, this looks painfully ordinary. The same woman who once felt eyes on her now moves through the world largely unseen. Fewer looks, less novelty, less spontaneous recognition. Photos quietly restore what routine erodes. They reassert a personal narrative that says, I exist outside my roles. I am still recognizable on my own terms. This isn't vanity, it's preservation. When identity feels flattened, the instinct is to protect it, not betray anyone. The second motive is external polarity. Desire needs contrast to stay alive. Long-term relationships neutralize polarity by design. Familiarity removes tension. Predictability removes edge. When attraction is assumed, it loses charge. Attraction fades fastest where it's assumed, not where it's absent. Inside marriage, desire often becomes implied rather than expressed. Outside it, even passively, contrast still exists. A stranger's gaze doesn't come with history, expectation, or obligation. It creates a moment of polarity without demand. That polarity isn't about wanting someone else. It's about feeling the spark of being wanted at all. If you want to apply this awareness, stop measuring desire by loyalty and start noticing where contrast still exists in your dynamic. The third motive is audience expansion, and this is the one men misunderstand the most. The photo isn't for one man, it's for possibility, for the awareness that options still exist, even if they're never taken. This is not cheating. This is option awareness. Knowing you are chosen is different from knowing you are choosable. Marriage confirms the first. Visibility confirms the second. When a woman posts and sees response, she isn't planning an exit. She's checking her value on the open market of attention. Understanding this doesn't mean you accept it blindly. It means you stop moralizing the surface behavior and start reading the underlying hunger. Because once you see the motives clearly, the behavior stops looking random and starts looking inevitable within the environment that produced it. This feels threatening to men because it hits three fears at once, and none of them are polite. Replacement is the first. The idea that attention is flowing toward her from elsewhere triggers the primal fear that someone else could step into your place. Disrespect is the sightless second. Public visibility feels like a private boundary being tested in front of an audience you didn't invite. Loss of control is the third, and this one cuts the deepest. You realize you can't manage who looks, who reacts, or how it makes her feel. That realization alone is enough to make many men angry, defensive, or reactive. But beneath all of that noise sits a quieter fear most men don't want to admit, even to themselves. If she needs outside eyes, am I enough? Not as a provider, not as a husband, as the man who makes her feel seen. This is why the behavior feels personal, even when it isn't aimed at a specific person. It bypasses logic and lands directly in identity. You start comparing invisible metrics. Who gets her best angles? Who gets her energy? Who gets the version of her that feels alive? And instead of clarity, you get doubt. This is where men often misframe the situation as betrayal. Betrayal is easier to process because it has villains and rules. Psychological hunger is harder because it doesn't announce itself and doesn't care about fairness. This isn't about her wanting to replace you. It's about unmet psychological nutrition. the same way the body craves nutrients long before it collapses. The mind seeks validation long before relationships break. When that nutrition isn't consistently provided where intimacy lives, it gets sourced elsewhere in the safest way possible. Visibility without commitment. Attention without consequence. You've seen this in real life. Men who say, "I give her everything," and genuinely mean it, yet can't explain why she still seeks external feedback. The missing piece isn't effort. It's resonance. Being needed is not the same as being felt. Being reliable is not the same as being desired. When those distinctions blur, men feel threatened because they sense something slipping that can't be controlled or commanded. If you want to apply this insight, stop reacting from fear and start observing from clarity. Ask what emotional nutrient is missing, not what rule is being broken. When you reframe the behavior away from betrayal and toward unmet needs, your response becomes grounded instead of panicked. And grounded responses are the only ones that actually change anything. The worst response men make is trying to control what was never created by freedom in the first place. Policing her behavior feels logical when you're threatened. You start watching what she posts, who likes it, how often, how fast. You ask questions disguised as concern, but loaded with accusation. You draw lines and call them boundaries, when in reality they're fear trying to sound principled. This doesn't calm the situation. It signals insecurity, and insecurity drains polarity faster than almost anything else. Moral lectures come next. You frame the issue as respect, loyalty, or what a married woman should do. You speak in rules because rules feel solid when attraction feels uncertain. But morality doesn't restore desire. It freezes it. The moment you turn the dynamic into right versus wrong, you remove tension and replace it with compliance. Compliance looks like peace, but it kills intimacy. She may stop posting. She may apologize. She may reassure you. And yet, something vital continues to slip away underneath the surface. Demanding reassurance is the quiet version of the same mistake. You ask her to tell you nothing is wrong, that you're enough, that you don't need to worry. She gives you the words because words are easy, but reassurance doesn't rebuild attraction. It anesthetizes fear without addressing its cause. Each request for reassurance shifts the polarity further out of balance. You become the one seeking validation, while she becomes the one supplying it. That inversion alone weakens the dynamic. Public arguments are the final misstep. Calling her out in front of others, even subtly, doesn't establish strength. It exposes loss of self-control. Attraction requires a sense of gravity. And gravity cannot exist where reactions are loud and unmanaged. Control kills polarity faster than neglect. When you try to shrink her freedom to feel safer, you shrink the very contrast that makes desire possible. You don't restore attraction by tightening your grip. You restore it by restoring presence and gravity. Presence means you stop reacting and start standing in yourself again. Gravity means your attention, approval, and emotional availability are no longer automatic. In real life, men who shift out of control and into containment don't argue less because they gave up. They argue less because they no longer need to prove anything. And that shift is felt immediately. If you want to apply this, resist the urge to correct behavior and instead correct your position. Stop managing her visibility. Start anchoring your own. When you remove control and replace it With grounded presence, polarity has room to return. And without polarity, no rule, lecture, or reassurance will ever be enough. What actually changes the behavior is not control, not confrontation, and not emotional management. It's environment correction. When the environment changes, behavior follows without force. The first shift is that attention stops being automatic. Desire reappears when attention regains value. In many long-term relationships, attention flows by default. It's assumed, constant, and therefore weightless. When you stop giving attention reflexively without becoming cold or punitive, it regains charge. This isn't about ignoring her. It's about no longer orienting yourself around her visibility, her moods, or her reactions. In real life, this looks like you staying grounded in your own direction, interests, and rhythm, regardless of whether she posts or doesn't. Attention that must be earned activates curiosity. Attention that is guaranteed numbs it. The second principle is masculine self-containment. This is where most men feel uncomfortable because it requires restraint instead of action. You stop reacting. You stop monitoring. You stop centering her visibility as a referendum on your worth. When you no longer scan for likes, comments, or changes in behavior, something subtle but powerful happens. Your presence becomes stable, dense. She no longer feels watched, judged, or managed. She feels a man who is centered in himself. This restores polarity naturally, not through dominance, but through gravity. Men who master self-containment don't withdraw emotionally. They stop leaking energy into anxiety and control. And that shift is felt immediately, even if it's never discussed. The third principle is identity re-engagement. Right now, she feels settled, not chosen. Settled is safe but flat. Chosen is alive. When the environment shifts correctly, she begins to feel herself being actively perceived again at home. Not taken for granted, not assumed. Seen. This doesn't come from reassurance or praise. It comes from presence that is selective, grounded, and intentional. When a woman feels deeply seen at home, she stops asking strangers to notice her, not because she's forbidden, but because the hunger has been fed where it actually matters. You've seen this play out in men who didn't argue, didn't threaten, didn't lecture. They simply stopped reacting and started living from their center again. The behavior changed not because they demanded it, but because the environment no longer required it. That's the difference between control and correction. One creates compliance, the other restores attraction. This is the final reality check, and it matters because it removes comfort from the equation. A married woman posting provocative photos isn't broken. The dynamic is, blame is easy because it gives you a target. Understanding is harder because it forces you to look at the environment that made the behavior feel necessary. When men rush to label the action as disrespect or betrayal, they skip the part that actually determines the outcome. They argue about symptoms while the system that produced them stays intact. That's how patterns repeat without ever being resolved. You can shame the behavior, and she may comply. She may delete photos, limit posts, reassure you, or promise it means nothing. On the surface, this looks like a win. Underneath, nothing essential has changed. The hunger that drove the behavior doesn't disappear when it's silenced. It just waits. Shame creates obedience, not desire. and obedience is a poor substitute for engagement. Understanding the hunger behind the behavior doesn't excuse it, it explains it. Explanation is what gives you leverage, not moral superiority. Truth over comfort means accepting that many men confuse calm with connection. They call silence trust. They call predictability security. They call the absence of conflict love. And then they're shocked when attention leaks outward. The truth is, attention goes where it's fed, and identity goes where it's reflected. If those needs aren't actively met inside the relationship, they don't vanish. They migrate to the lowest cost source available. Online visibility offers that source with no confrontation and instant feedback. That's why this pattern is so common and so misunderstood. If you want to apply this reality, stop asking how to stop the behavior and start asking how to change the environment. Stop focusing on what she posts and start noticing what feels alive between you. Are you present or predictable? Are you grounded or reactive? Is your attention assumed or earned? Men who correct the environment don't need ultimatums. They don't need surveillance. They don't need speeches. The behavior changes because the hunger no longer needs to look elsewhere. This message resonates because it isn't wrapped in red pill slogans or alpha posturing. There's no manipulation here, no tactics, just psychological accuracy. It speaks to men already in relationships who are tired of pretending not to see what's obvious. Everyone sees the behavior. Almost no one explains it honestly. What happens next depends on whether you face reality or keep calling discomfort trust until it costs you everything.